Welcome to The Life of You, the bonus episode where we tackle your dilemmas and share advice for life's trickiest moments. I'm joined once again by best-selling author Abigail Dean.
I really do believe that there's this idea you have of this kind of perfect book or perfect piece of art, and I think that as soon as you start putting it into an actual physical form, that perfection kind of falls away.
Your questions answered right after this. We've got a question from Lily. She says, I'm in a job that's meant to be a good one. Great salary. People seem impressed when I talk about it, but I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I always thought success would feel better than this. I want to do something more creative, but I don't know where to start or if I'd just be throwing everything away. What helped you figure out what was worth holding on to and what to leave behind?
Epic question. So I'm going to give quite a conservative lawyer answer to this.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to disappoint everyone.
No, I think it's important.
I feel like if you can explore it from a position of comfort, I think that is always useful. So if you can kind of look into creative classes, whether you can spend some time at the weekends and evenings kind of investigating that kind of creative thing that you want to do, that gives you the
without
ability,
having to give up the job.
Without making that kind of real two-path decision. I think that helps. And I think then you get to know whether you've got a particular passion or idea that is worth that big leap. But yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like my right answer would be go for the creative thing, live your own life. But also, I've got more of a bit more of a reserved answer there.
You don't have to make a decision today, but you can start exploring it in a way that isn't all or nothing and doesn't scupper everything.
Yeah, and then it doesn't have to. That investigation doesn't have to be kind of perfect, because I think when my 20s, when I was trying to write and failing miserably at writing, I had these really grand ideas about what writing for me entailed, and it was kind of like, I needed hours of time, and I needed to be kind of sat in this particular chair at this table with no one else in the house.
In a writing room.
Yeah, and I think the investigation does not need to be done in a writing room. Leave those ideas behind.
Where do you write? Because I literally have written my last book on the sofa, because my writing room is the spare room, and my brother was living in it.
Which is, yeah, I think a sofa's great, bed's great. I try to write. I do have a little office at home, and that's where I like to write. But a lot of The Death of Us was written in the notes section on my phone.
Really?
Yeah. I have like a laptop that I cart around that's like cracked from being in handbags, and sometimes if I'm on a bus or something and I feel like I'm really enjoying a particular scene, or I've got ideas for another scene, I think it really helps not to be precious about where you kind of do your creative thing, because I think the more specific you are, the harder it becomes to do it.
Yeah, in a way, those are just ways of limiting yourself.
Yeah, at least for me, yeah, 100%.
Because actually, I think written is better than not.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's sneaking those little moments. I wrote my first book on maternity leave while my child was asleep. It's not ideal, but, it got done.
Yeah. And nothing, I really do believe that there's this idea you have of this kind of perfect book or perfect piece of art or perfect song, or whatever your kind of creative passion is. There's this idea of this perfect thing that you will create. And I think that as soon as you start putting it into an actual physical form, that perfection kind of falls away, and actually it's way better to create the thing during between feeding your baby at night or on a bus, rather than awaiting this kind of mythical perfect creation that will just never ever come. Yeah.
This is from Katie. Katie says, I'm in my mid-30s and everyone around me seems to be having kids, but I can't shake the fear that I'm not cut out for it. Also, all of my friends with kids look like they're exhausted. How do you know if you're cut out for being a mum? And is there anything I can do beforehand, like a theory test?
what a great idea of a fairy test.
I feel like they should make us. I do remember that when they were like, you can go home now from the hospital. I was like, is someone going to come and like investigate whether I'm allowed to take this baby home?
I'm not sure there is anything that you can do that will test that out. I don't think there's anybody who is naturally kind of equipped to be a mum or not equipped to be a mum. There are just kind of people struggling and trying. But I think if there are big doubts, it's worth listening to the doubts. I think certainly the fact that your friends are having kids is not a good reason, I guess I would say to have kids, because once they're there, I mean, they're around for a while.
But also, I do just think we are getting to the stage now where we are accepting that you don't, maybe you don't want to have kids, and that's really okay. And there are different, I'm talking about a theory test, but there are different ways of experiencing parenthood without having to go through the, I definitely think of having children in your life that aren't biologically yours, I think that's just as beautiful, in different ways, but just as important. My sister doesn't have kids, but she is such a crucial person to my daughter.
Yes.
And her auntyhood is absolutely critical to Edie. She was with us the whole weekend. It was my daughter's 12th birthday party. There are just different ways of showing up. And I would say to Katie that just don't compare yourself to your friends. Don't try and do their lives. Do you? And if motherhood happens, well, you're just going to have to go with that.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, then that's the path that you were meant to be on.
And both of those lives will be wonderful in different ways. There's not a right decision, I don't think, when it comes to
totally
agonizing about having children, because there'll be kind of wonderful elements and terrible elements potentially to both.
Parts. And I have friends as well who have desperately wanted children and it hasn't happened for them. And their lives are incredible now in totally different ways, that they could never have imagined. So just, you do you, Katie. Listen, I say these 3 words a lot, and maybe they feel meaningless, but just trust the process. Trust what the universe gives you, Katie.
Yes, and then your friends probably are exhausted. I think that is accurate. And
yeah, they probably
one path
are.
might be less exhausting, but perhaps not. Who knows what might crop up?
I mean, just...
You do you.
You do you.
Yeah.
Thank you again to Abigail for all of her warmth, insight and honesty. If something in this episode resonated, send it to someone you love. And of course, don't forget to follow or subscribe. Most importantly, take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.